Hi, this is Mike Hughes. Today what we're going to do is set out a node structure, a template node structure, which you're going to use in your gallery under your power grades, so you can begin a real solid workflow of editing the nodes and not have to recreate the wheel every time. So just to manage expectations here, what we're going to cover is, first off, we're going to walk through this. Right here is just the end result, but I want to walk through every step and have you do it, so you really take ownership. You're probably going to change something as far as this flow, just a little bit of my preference, but we're going to go into a little bit of setting keys, the best way to set keys to isolate skin, sky, and some other stuff. And yeah, I think this is really good. I stand on the shoulders of other people, obviously. I'm adapting some of this from other places which I've learned. I'll just give credit where credit's due. Rom K, well, I forget which tutorial it was, but he has some really good tutorials. Check him out. Let's jump into it. I'm going to edit this clip right here. I see Ryan here has a little bit of fire going on in his head, and that is a whole nother tutorial of doing a dual tracking plane, which I may or may not do if the spirit moves me. But anyways, that's not the point here. We're just going to set out a structure and then do the edits. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is just set up a new node structure. So if you don't do this already, it's a great idea to use versions. If you go here to local versions and create new version, label it. So this would be my 4th version here. Let's go, I'll just call it something like Scratch for tutorial. All right, and come up here and let's just go ahead and right click, reset the whole node graph. All right, here we go. So what we want to do first is, and again, I'm going to make the edits here and actually do the edits and do it as very structured, and then remove the edits and then save it under a power grade so I can use it for other projects. All right, so first thing is a base. So let's go ahead and relabel this. Hopefully the keystrokes will pop up there, but that was Alt or Option Shift L for label real quick, and we just call this base. So the base node essentially is just a real basic edit. So I'm going to hit Command Shift W, and ideally this pops up in another screen, but I'll make any kind of like edits I want to do here. So this is I might lift these blues a little bit. I'm in the color tab here, of course, so we'll go down to lift and on my control surface, but maybe something like that. Maybe I got to drop the greens, go to magenta, kind of drift it away, just something very subtle. Of course, drop the blacks just a little bit. I don't want to sink them. May lift those highlights a little bit. In this case, I'll just adjust the gamma. All right, that's kind of it. So I just kind of want a real base image. In fact, let me switch this to a hero shot, something along right here. All right. Okay, that looks decent enough right now. So after I get my base done, let's go ahead. I'm going to add a new node. Now I'm going to start these separated edits. These I'm going to break them out in different nodes because it's a little bit easier to control them and turn them on, turn them off, and see what's kind of having an effect, as opposed to packing it all into one node. So let's go ahead and change this one. And since we're making a template essentially, we want to be pretty disciplined in our labels. So under shadows, here's what I like to do in shadows, is this area down here, is this play with it, see if there's some richness we can pull out. All right. So again, I'm on my control surface so you can see me. Well, I'll leave this up here. Let's go ahead and boost the shadows. Now what this does, it's funny how it works up here, but this area right here is just going to get pulled up a little bit. And sometimes when I do this, I got to bring it down to lift, and I'm okay with doing that in doing that within this one node. So that's really just an isolation shadows. Now I hit Command D to just turn on and off. So I like that a little bit better. All right. Okay. In the same notion, let's just march ahead here. Let's just go to the other extreme and go to highlights. The next node to separate out is contrast. So what I like to do here is have a very specific node that I can turn on and off essentially to see if I like the contrast, because sometimes I think I like high contrast, sometimes I think I like it flatter. So it's nice just to have it just live somewhere that can be easily turned on and off. That being said, you can just very simply, in fact, I'll just turn off the thing there and come in and adjust it. Now I might adjust that pivot a bit based on the histogram. So I kind of maybe want to be right in here and start separating these guys out a bit. So let's go ahead and bring the pivot down Yeah, about 35, yeah, 350, base 10 scale there, kind of somewhere in there, and bring that contrast out a little bit. I kind of like that. All right, let's go ahead and hit Command D, turn on and off. Yeah, a little bit more of a dramatic shot. All right, but anyhow, okay, so that's playing with that. Now, next node I like to use is just a log node, okay? And mind you too, part of this, you don't always have to use these nodes, but when you have it as a template in your gallery and you have a new clip and this just automatically pops up without any changes, just as a structure, sometimes it's a reminder, okay? Because sometimes I forget tools, like, oh yeah, I forget about certain tools like, adding a vignette or something like that. So it really serves for that purpose. So this one here, this node, is going to be down under log. And if you're not familiar with log tools, it just means it's very much a hard area where you're adjusting without affecting anything above or below it. So let's say in the shadows here, the low range is 333 on a base 10. Then if we mess with these shadows, we're really just working down in that area. This is very handy sometimes because there's some shots where you just do a log-like correction, and that correction is very isolated. Sometimes it's usually in a highlight, usually above or below. Sometimes in the middle, particularly if you widen this range. But it's a dedicated area to make those very surgical, contained changes. So anyways, not a lot in this shot, but it's good to have as a template. So next one, let's go ahead and hit some saturation. All right, so I'm just doing this up here, and I'm just going to call it saturation. Now I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I got this from that ARMK I mentioned before. For saturation, you can obviously just go down and adjust these levels. A little different way of doing it, and I'm not really sure if this is the best way, honestly, but if you come into these outputs and jack them all the way up, okay, so now it's obviously very much oversaturated, but then you go into the key output and you reduce it down a bit, all right, something like that. And of course, let's use our scopes here. Yeah, so that's a very saturated red. Maybe I might do an isolation on that later, but kind of tuning that down a little bit. It's kind of a different way of doing it, and like everything, if you don't do this already, always, if you want to just tone off, ease off on any kind of correction, just go ahead, this key output, and just bring that down so its effect is mitigated, is lowered. Now next one, that's one of my favorite little nodes, is to hit on some sharpness. All right, so this node, I do two things. I like to first off hit this radius, so let's go ahead and zoom in here a bit. Obviously we're gonna have to do some denoising here, but let's go ahead and get this sharpness. Usually about, at very least, always at 0.47. All right, so let's go to about 0.46 here. Let's turn it on and off. Okay, on and off. Now obviously I could do some facial tracking, something around the eyes if I want, but I don't mind that. Let's get a little bit, make sure I got a good clear focus shot. Yeah, a little teenager little pimples going on here, but I is off, on. I kind of like that, so that's a little bit of sharpness within that control. But I also generally, in this node, my preference is to go down to use mid-range contrast, or otherwise known as punch. Obviously, sometimes I ease this off with females, or if I want to look softer, and I jack it up with males. If there's a little bit of difference between the localized pixels, you're going to separate those a bit, and it gets very, very edgy. All right, kind of look in the graph how that starting to separate within there, those little pixels. Get kind of a very masculine look. All right, depending on what you want. If you want soft portrait or you want something harder, generally speaking, I like a little bit of a harder look there. All right, beautiful. So let's label this. I'm going to call it sharpness. And I guess if I want to, I could call it punch or whatever as well. But okay, so next layer, I'm going to put this actually, see if I can widen this out a little bit. It's kind of a weird one, but I like to have a dedicated node just for if I want to put a light anywhere. All right, so a light just means a secondary correction actually, and I want to illuminate some area or sometimes darken an area. So if there's some reason, like let's say just in this area, let's put a nice kind of very highly feathered something like that. Yeah, if this goes away, you can't find it, just put on another mask and turn it off, and then that window comes back. I don't know why that bug has been so persistent and prevalent. Hasn't been eradicated yet, all these variations, all these versions of Resolve. Okay, something like that. So if I just wanted some kind of a light, in this case I don't think I do. I'll do it in other ways, but it's kind of handy to have a dedicated node if you're going to light, and a little bit more something somewhere. Yeah, see, I just lit them up a little bit in that region area. Nothing huge. Okay. All right, great. Now let's get into some fancy stuff. You could probably add your own nodes through here if you have some other just little magic which you like to do. Like you may want to have a dedicated one just for curves. All right. Let's say, and let's just do that for fun. Let's just go ahead and call this curves. And let's just say this is very simple. Let's say you're just a curves person and you like to put contrast in curves or have something special on there. Okay, you can certainly do that. In fact, I'll do that just because I do like to play around with some of these variables, hue versus luminescence, and it's kind of a reminder too that you should look at this tab, look down here, and do this. One thing I would like to note, give credits to, whenever you get into curves, always remember this little sentence. I learned this from Robbie Carmen, great author, great speaker. When you hit curves, think of it as a sentence. Think of like hue controls hue. All right, just to get rid of versences controls. Luminescence controls saturation. So if we go to this, we know that luminescence is controlling saturation, and we'll actually use this one a little bit later. It's an easy way to figure out what the hell's going on here with all these curves. Incredibly powerful and much more useful in the later versions here. Okay, super. So let's continue on here. Now let's get to the, like I say, the fancy hard stuff here. So what I'm going to do is make another row here. I'm just going to hit right click and just add a node out in space. And I'm basically going to get a mask going. I like to have an isolation straight away just on skin and an isolation on sky. There's not much sky on this one, but in general, those are the two areas I like to do secondary corrections. And let's call it skin mask, all right? No, let's just go skin key rather, okay, skin key. So here's the deal. Instead of pulling this information from all these edits we've done into this node, all right, let's turn it on. See, like we've already done all these crazy edits and stuff, and sometimes, like, I don't know, if you're doing a key, let's just get the direct information, which is unadulterated, unedited, unchanged, all right? Just this real flat, slightly underexposed image, all right? Because that's never going to change. And what we want to do here is we're going to get this key, all right, and let's go ahead and do that right now. Let's just do a simple key. Let's just kind of drag across here. Not bad for a skin there, all right, and maybe I'll do something else like a little power window and edit or something. Okay, let's just work with that for right now. And this key is going to, Option S, make a new node. I'm not going to get the information from that key. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the key to this node, and I'm going to get the information from everything we've worked on up here. All right, and I can get rid of that, and we're going to pipe this here for now for output. All right, here we go. So what are we doing here? This is pretty clever. I learned this somewhere. I can't remember who I learned this from, but anyways, we're getting the key straight away here. We're getting the information of curve, from all this whole workflow up here, right here. So we're getting the best of both worlds, in my opinion. So now, if I want to make an edit, first off, let me go back to this key and change it a little bit. So I always hit this button to kind of see exactly what you're seeing here. And let's just, let me just do a fit here. It's kind of undersized without a reference monitor. Sometimes I play with the center to see if I'm kind of right in there. The saturation, yeah, I don't have to do much there. I'll see if I can get a little bit of these lower luminescent, darker pixels. Okay, That's about as good as I want to do right here as far as the base. Now I'm going to use Windows to finish it. This is one, let me take a soft left here. Again, these tutorials are long, but I try to make them exceptionally complete. So here's the deal, and this is something that color graders really have to borrow as mindset-wise from compositors, like probably I think one of the best authors and compositors. I can't say him as mentor, but I've seen a lot of his stuff on lynda.com. Mark Christensen, really brilliant way of looking at, you know, a composite, making things look real. But point is, break it down in steps. Like, don't try to do a key or a green screen all in one swoop. I think you got to like split it out and then put it together. It just makes immeasurably more sense. So I'm not going to worry about these eyes right here, these lips. I'm going to get that in a second. I'm going to worry about kind of these edges up here. So first off, let's get rid of the the potholes in the black, and let's make get rid of the holes in the white, the clear. So we can let's be a little more aggressive on that. Okay, like a little bit of blur radius. Let's blur, and then denoise has been a great addition. So I'm going to denoise it, and I let it play a little bit. It's not too chattery. All right, not too chattery. All right. So, because you don't want that weird like chatter. We'll get rid of all this here in a second, okay? All right, great. Now, what I would do in a key, if I was this neurotic about skin, sometimes I'm not, but sometimes I'm amazed how I can isolate skin tones in a secondary correction. But generally, this node will also have a mask coupled with it, right? So I'm just going to get rid of this type of stuff through here. I'm going to make it kind of big to start with. And then after you make your mask, you go over to the tracker, make sure I'm on clip. I don't really need 3D, I'll do rotate. These ones will work. And let's just go ahead and track this mask. Okay, not much there. And let's go. Okay, good, simple. All right, a little bit in the hair here. Now what I can do is try to edit this out. Now if you go to frame, you actually put in keyframes and change this mask throughout. I like to do this afterwards, something like this, and maybe right here I'll edge it out. Yeah, that's some weirdness right there, looks kind of odd, but and then right here okay, notice I'm not really getting the eyes or the lips, okay? Alright, I'll go to that last keyframe and kind of just sneak it in there like that. Pretty what's going on here? No, let's get that keyframe. It's in there for some reason. Obviously you don't want too many keyframes because it can really start to be kind of a pain in the neck. Alright. Okay, so that is really primarily a key. Okay, it's primarily a key, but it doesn't hurt to have them. Oh, I know, that's that damn fire. I could get rid of that fire upstream, but I'm just gonna leave it there for now. That's not bad, right? So let's do this now. Why do we have to be limited with just relying on a color key? All right. Well, first off, what I would strongly suggest at this phase as you make it is do a different version and try a whole different method to your key. What I would do at this point is go ahead and let's make a local version. Let's create new version. This will be version 5. So I'll just kind of keep that. I'll say version 5 tutorial, and this is going to be a 3D key. All right. Boom. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I can always go back to that old version, just so you understand that if you don't do this. Like I can go back to the Scratch for tutorial right there, but now I'm on version 5. So let's go ahead into this skin key, and let's get rid of, actually I'll leave these power windows, they're going to be handy, but instead of the hue, saturation, luminescence, let's just go ahead and reset that, and let's go down to 3D. Alright, this is pretty awesome if you haven't played with this. So in 3D, I'll just do kind of a pass through here. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. Let's just hit the negative. If it ain't working, make sure you're clipped right here. I've done that a lot where this has been legacied on plus or minus and I can't get it going. So yeah, make sure you're on that initial, to at least get the first one. All right. I'll do a few more See what I can get here. Not working. I don't think I'm happy with that. Let's try get a clean black. Let's push the clean whites. Getting a little bit more here than I wanted. It's not working. You know what? So I'm just going to ban right here. I think the other one was better. Alright, so I'm going to come here. I'm going to come back scratch for tutorial. And, oh, come on. Oh, please don't. And let's load that one. Boom, okay? Alright, easy peasy. Alright, now actually let's go back to this mask. Let's add a little bit of softness. Okay, just something like that. Make sure we got it. Okay, now, here, let's do this. Let's go ahead and grab this stuff, but we're just going to do it just by a pure mask. So we're going to have the same process. I'm going to add a node corrector, and I'm going to take that raw image again. And I don't really need to. I could take the image here, but just for consistency, I'll take it right from the source here. And I'm going to add the mask. So how do I get two masks? Let me go ahead and make my mask first, and then I'll show you how we add it in here. So I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to like draw a little thing. I could do, no, I will do two masks. I will do two. Let me come just a little bit tight through here. I'll make sure I can get a little bit of feather, but I don't want much. So I drew a mask. Great. Now let's go ahead and track it. Let's track it forward. Okay, pretty easy. Let's go ahead and track it in reverse. Alright, actually that's surprising. That worked out surprisingly well. Now what I could do, like say right here, is go to frame, and first off, okay, I got a keyframe there already. I think that's where I started. Right about here, I'll just cozy this guy up a little bit. Hit an option scroll. My laptop here. Yeah, I can even add a point. Okay. And then I can't even see what's going on here. Probably won't matter much. Make something in like that. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Probably won't matter. Okay, so that's a nice little mask. Let's do one more for the mouth. Let's go ahead and turn this off for a second. Let's get a little bit of a hero shot here. It looks very oversaturated right now, but we'll fix that later. Let's go to Windows, and if you need another one, just hit another curve. Let's kind of get. I don't want to get too many points because it's more of a liability than an asset sometimes. So we're going to points that's coming here. All right, make sure it's all clear. So we're on this mask, and let's just edit it a little bit. Looks good. And let's go reverse. All right, not bad. Let's go to frame. Now let's go to what's good. Right about here. Probably could run a little bit sooner. No, that works. That cozied in pretty good. Maybe right about here. We'll just, and it's some of the stuff we don't have to be quite so retentive on. I like to. It really depends how what quality you want. Okay, brilliant. So if we go ahead, there we go. Good. Now we can actually feather these, but we might not need to, and I'll show you why in a second. So we're going to combine these two. So we have essentially that one, and we have this one. All right. Well, let's combine them. Let's make this super easy. Let's go to right-click right about this area, add node, and we're going to have a key mixer. If you haven't played with this before, this will blow your mind. Okay, this is super useful. So let's turn on that guy. All right, now we're getting some best of both worlds here. I strongly recommend to you when you're getting a key is get into a compositor's mindset, all right, an After Effects, Fusion type mindset person, and break it out. Do it in steps, all right? Do it like divide and conquer. Don't do it all in one loop. Do your edges and do your center, like everything for green screen and everything. Okay. All right. So let's do this here. Let's kind of get a sense of where deficiencies are. Not bad. I think what I'll do is I'll just soften out this mask. So I'll take this mask, click on what do you got there? This guy. And let's just, yeah, kind of give it a little bit softer look. That's kind of weird looking. But honestly, let's see here, let's just turn that down a little bit. What I could do here too, I'm going to hold down Option, drag it, make it a little bit less pointy. I'm going to live with that, alright, generally, because I'm not going to do very much a drastic change, alright. Boom. Alright, now, under skin, let's just say I just want to make some changes. Like I just want to brighten it up a little bit. Alright, so we got that area. So I'm isolating that skin where I can play with the values. I'm in this node. Let's label this skin. So maybe I'll just usually bring these midtones up a little bit. Nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. Let's bring the shadows up too. That's looking a little weird. Obviously, let me get my scopes up here. So it can help too with just doing isolation so you can kind of see. I do want to have pure blacks. Let's go ahead and raise the shadows so we have a lot of contrast through the face there. Okay. Sometimes the midtone detail, this is where I'll isolate it up a little bit, make it even a little bit harder. All right. And of course, if you haven't done this before, I think it was, I learned this from Mixing Light there, that you have the qualifier, but right click and use show RGB picker values. Is great, so you can kind of see what the values are. Okay, we're down. I like to look at the ratios here. Obviously we're at 186, 133, 187. That's fairly saturated. All right, that's because saturation is just color contrast, but it's in the right order. It should always be like red, green, blue, and then it kind of goes a little lower, lower, lower for skin tones. And of course, here's your skin tone line right here. This has a little bit of richness to it, you know, coming left and right there. A little bit red, rosy, and what have you. Maybe something like this. I'll just have some fun because I'm isolating skin tones and actually lower that saturation just a little bit. Okay. All right. You get the idea, though. And of course, you can just turn this on and off and see if you've done something good there. Okay, let's bring this shadows down a little bit. Pull that down. I don't want it to pop too crazy. All right, beautiful. Now, let's do this. Because we're making a template right now, all right, I generally like to have a similar type of structure like this, but for sky. So I can do an isolated review of the sky. And it's not always sky. Sometimes it's going to be something else, like in this case foliage, greenery or what have you. So real quickly, let's just do this. I'm going to call this sky key. Sometimes I can key it off just luminescence. Sometimes I can get another node here, do it with a little bit of color on there as well. So same notion, I get the raw information from the raw signal, and then I'm going to right click, add a layer, or excuse me, key mixer. Okay. Boom. All right. And then that is going to go to a node where I actually change the sky. But I'm going to change the sky, getting the information from this workflow up here, these array of nodes. Come on. Corrector. Boom. All right. So I'm going to get the key from here. Boom. And I'm going to get the information from up here. And actually, while I do this, I just remember what I forgot. There's one other node I could add up here. I'll add it right now just in space. And that is just a temperature node. All right. Sometimes I like to have a node that is just isolated on the temperature, and I'll use these controls. I like the new controls right within here as far as temp, which just isolates the movement of the pixels in this direction. And it could be temp and then tint as well. So I go from green to magenta. Obviously green to magenta, make sure that's balanced. And then temperature is more of a stylistic look. So it doesn't hurt if you want to have that in this array for your most basic level. So you know what? I'll just add this. It's going to be out of order. But I can actually just, after I think sharpness, put in temperature. All right. Fair enough. Sorry about that. Forgot about that. Okay, boom. So let's label this one. Let's go this one want to call this sky, and I can call it mask or key, and the other one's a key. So this will be like a mask. I'll do the same process I did up here with actual mask parts. And then, of course, this is just going to be sky, the actual change. A lot of times if it's sky and I pick something like here, I'll push the blues or do something like that. Right here, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to let it be blown out. So, all right, now the big question is, how do I make all this stuff kind of come together? Because I'm changing skin, I'm changing sky, I've done all my base edits to everything around it. Well, all you have to do here is just pull this into a mixer, a layer mixer, all right? You can do, well, I take it back. You can do layer mixer or parallel mixer. You can research this a bit, like what the differences are. Layers are actually like kind of Photoshop layers, except it goes from, it's reverse order. Instead of like the transparency stacking up top, the bottom one is what's on top, all right? That's all fine and good, but a parallel mixer, I might have this wrong, I might have to come back and edit this, but a parallel mixer will actually kind of combine everything together and not be so worried about the order. I think that's true. I should probably check that. Oops, I'll leave that there for now. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to add an input, all right? And we're going to take this output from our whole flow up here, ending with curves, and I'm going to put that in here. And then I'm going to take our skin input and we're going to mix that in. We're going to take our sky input and mix that in. And then we're going to continue the journey in the next node, which will deal with our LUTs and all that silliness. But now it's starting to look like spaghetti, but if you've walked through this and you've taken ownership, this should be comfortable to you. I like to, kind of engineering-wise, to get these lines, perpendicular as possible, just so it's pretty clear where everything's coming from. So there's one more step I like to do in here, and just bear with me on this because this would actually, you might find this incredibly helpful. Let's go ahead and add a new node, and this is going to be the kind of the whole background, like the whole everything other than skin, right? Sometimes I like skin to be that living up here in this line and everything else blue, just so you have greater color contrast. I'd love to give you the tutorial on that, but you can find on that, like blue in the background, skin, very peachy in the foreground, looks really good. So I just call this node, this is basically no skin, okay, like everything else in skin, all right? No skin, what we want to do, as you see, is obviously we put this alpha channel, or this mask-like channel, I forget what it's called actually, but anyways, it comes down here, and we want it to be the opposite. So first off, let's do this. Let's bring in the background. So everything that has been done up here is going to get piped in to this deal there. Now if you see right here, this little preview, you can see that it's actually taken, it's not inverted yet. So we have to go down here to the key, and we click right there, and that does the exact opposite, okay? So now the no skin has to be brought in to this mixer. So let's add one input, like that. Okay, so let's get a hero shot here. All right, something like that. And let's get in this node, and let's just go ahead and bring everything else in the background. Let's kind of bring it blue. And actually, for purposes of this, why don't we bring it pretty aggressively here? The change is pretty subtle here, but if I wanted, say, for example, his skin tones to really pop, all right, I would do something silly like this and just have color contrast. And let's get rid of that. And see how the skin is just crazy. So if we just turn every node off, let me turn all the nodes off. Starts with that. Of course, it looks like that. All right. All right. So I don't want to go quite that nuts. So I can either like ease this off, or honestly, sometimes I'll just come up here and just kick down the effect of it a little bit like that. Something like that. Okay. Perfect. Boom. All right. So now next thing we want to do is if we want to do a LUT. So I don't know what y'all think, if you like LUTs or not. I think they're kind of stupid, just because they're just a math table of changing values. I mean, aren't we supposed to really do that right here? But if you do put in a LUT, let me just show you a protocol workflow which works pretty good. So if you've done all your base changes, you've done all this, maybe you have a LUT on top of this. What I like to have first off is a pre-LUT, and once I get through this, you're going to kind of see my LUTs are kind of crazy anyways, because I think they're highly overrated just personally. And then a post-LUT. So we're going to do something we need to do prior to putting in the LUT, and then we're going to actually apply the lookup table, the LUT, and then we're going to try to fix it. So why do we have to do all this? Well, you don't have to, but you know, sometimes it's not a bad idea to, to try to just get some ideas and some looks at the very least. So first off, how do you know which LUT to put in? I mean, if you look up the table, if you put the table in right here, what we want to do here is I'm just make sure I'm selected on this LUT node, all right? And I come over here and I click up here to open up LUTs. And you probably have some you've downloaded and such, and there's tutorials, of course, on how to get different lookup tables, LUTs. But the trick is we come over here and we go to split screen mode and make sure the split screen is down with selected LUTs. All right. So that being said, now as we pick these LUTs, you're gonna see how it is and then what the LUT does. Okay. I actually like to open up the monitor here and just have the parade, because the other ones aren't very useful, but the parade is actually kind of useful because it's it's faithfully showing what's going on here and then what's going on this side. All right, so it kind of gets an idea. And I don't know why some of these LUTs, they take all these darks and they crush them. Like it's such an, I don't know, just dumb math to me, but whatever. Point being right here is, here's the film looks, and we can go down and just look at these different film looks. And if you do want to use a LUT and it just ain't working, what you can do is go to the pre-LUT, all right, change up, go to the pre-LUT and fix it. And you may be thinking, why do I have to do this? And it's like, well, you don't, but it's an option at least, okay? So now let's go just a regular the luminescent curve. And I don't know, let's say I want to fix it, so I just play around with something like that, and then make some kind of a curve. I don't know, at some point you're like, why the hell am I doing this? But anyways, point being, you get an idea for the structure. All right, so you set your play to pre-LUT, put in your LUT, and then I just have another node for a post-LUT because, like, okay, here's my post-LUT. All right, I don't know, let's look at a few more of these for a little bit of fun here. Let's look at the black magic. Jeez, God, they look. Again, I'll reserve comment, but what the heck? You can have a lot of fun, actually, and this is where it is a little bit more addicting to download different ones that claim to be all great and just see what they do. Okay, let's just roll with that. This Fujifilm Deep 55. Okay, so actually it doesn't matter what node you're on here because this just doesn't actually select it for that node. So if I want to say select this LUT, I can honestly just drag it and drop it and put it, say, right on right on that node, that LUT node. And let's just get out of here. Let's just close the LUT table. Okay. And then the other way you can do this, of course, too, is you right-click any node, you apply LUT. Where's that? LUTs. And of course, you have the 3D LUTs, and boom, boom, boom. Find it like that. Okay. But anyways, if you want to use a lookup table LUT, but you maybe don't want to tone it back, of course, always remember this little tool of just using this to get rid of it, or to kind of use a little bit here. Okay, just to look. I don't really like that, but I'll leave it for the purpose of this tutorial right now. All right. So, okay, the next thing we want to do is kind of our last step on here, which is something, again, I forget where I learned this, but desaturating the black. It might be from that Abram S, but all right, we're going to call this desat blacks, all right? So this is pretty clever. And And I learned this from, again, like Abram. But let's go back to our custom curves. And what we want to do is take these blacks and make sure they are indeed black. If you recall earlier in this deal, if you go to qualifier, right-click, and make sure you can see RGB value, you can dip in here. And even if you aren't going to key, you can see, okay, these things are very much blue shifted from this stupid LUT we did. Okay. Well, let's get blacks be black, all right? So if I come down here and I go luminescence, controls, saturation, all right? You just put controls versus in there. It just take out versus and luminescence, controls, saturation. And let's drop this down and give a little bit of runway there. And then bring this up like that, okay? So I'm gonna hit Command D and turn that one on and off. Not a huge change. What I might do in this post-LUT fix is go ahead. Yeah, this is kind of goofy. Let's go back to the 4. Yeah, definitely the blues have lifted on that. Let's go ahead and let's look at this waveform. Just off loop this the Y value or uncolorized. Yeah, we can bring that down a bit to quote fix that LUT. So now we're going to get blacks be black. All right. And just desaturate blacks. Let's get back to the curve here. All right, so some of these blacks in here we want to be black. So if I just toggle that one on and off, probably I can see a little bit in this monitor. If I had my reference monitor, it'd probably be a little more visible. But this just helps make the blacks be black, and it's a really good example of how curves can be very useful. Yep, I see a little bit of change right there. All right, great, super. Now next one, let's do a little vignette. So let's add a new node. We only about 2 more of these. Let's call it, I think that's the right way to spell it. Now at the vignette, of course, we're going to have a big mask, heavily feathered, and make this roughly fit a 16 by 9. If you're working 1 by 235, you want to make it accordingly. And then of course I'm going to want to flip that around, and then my controls go away, so I add a mask and take a mask away. A dumb trick to. So let's make sure we just going to attack that very edge. Okay. So with the vignette, and this is already kind of a high contrast, dramatic looking shot, but with the vignette, let's get out of there to the color. I'm going to want to just bring that down a little bit. Actually, the black's not so much, more the midtones, particularly the highlights. Okay. Okay. To get rid of that thing, just that gets rid of that mask, that annoying mask. So a good vignette, you shouldn't really be able to see it, right? So if I click on here and hit Command D, you can see, yeah, my eyes being brought a little bit more towards the center. So I'll just leave it like that, keep it very subtle, but I'd highly recommend using a vignette, of course. All right, so let's just do 2 more. Let's put in a final tweak, and this is just kind of a catch-all. Like, is there anything you just want to change on here? Okay, like the highlights, I don't know, a little more saturation, anything like that. I mean, sometimes maybe, I don't know, I'll put some, obviously you're going to change it up, but maybe I'll just do a secondary correction, like, select these reds and desaturate the reds a little bit. Oh, yep, that's on plus. I got to make sure that is selected, and pull something like that. Okay, get rid of everything else. Maybe put a, you guys know the drill. Guys and gals know the drill on this stuff here. Right, something, actually let's denoise it, of course, and blur it. And let's go in here and just desaturate it just a little bit. It just takes a little bit too dominant there, okay? And heck, why not? Let's just put a quick down and dirty thing, so we're only looking what we want to look at here. Okay, I catch his jawline a little bit. Might not matter. Anyways, we get the idea there. I can obviously track that mask too. Something like that. Maybe feather it out pretty aggressively. Desaturate that. Good. Okay, kind of getting a crazy look here, but anyways. And then the final one is just going to be grain. All right. So let's just, or denoise rather. I can add grain too. That could be another one. I take the noise out and basically add it back in. But again, if you got the pro version, which I would highly recommend, this isn't raw. Let's see here. Boom. Yeah, with the spatial threshold, you can, of course, it kind of works best to really zoom in here. Kind of get an idea. Let's see here. And then go ahead and the luma's going to be a little strong, a little bit of chroma green. You can be aggressive on this, play with it. This is a good one to turn on the very end because it tends to slow things down quite a bit. All right. And again, I always just turn it on, turn it off. Yeah, I'm not changing too much, so you can see I'm just taking a little bit off, but I don't want it to look too plasticky. All right. Okay, not bad. All right. So, anyways, you get the idea. So now the next steps on this is to turn this into a power grade so you can use somewhere else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this craziness we have going on here and just do a new version. So I'll click down here, I'll go to local versions, I'll go create new version, and I'm just going to call this, I'll call it V6, and then let's call it the template. All right. Now what I want to do is just undo all these changes, but leave the node structure because I'm going to save it within my gallery. All right. So let's go ahead and go through all these and just very methodically, boom. I'm under log right now, primary wheels, reset. Okay, these all should be basically blanked out. Reset. Okay, I just screwed up here. I went around and manually, checked each one to get rid of everything. But actually, I don't have to do that. I can just right-click this and reset node grade. I don't want to reset all these grades exactly. For some of these, like the vignette, I actually, in the future, I want to leave that mask. I might tweak it around a bit, but I might as well just save a step and already have it out there, which probably where I will like it in the future. But for like that, I'll have to come in here and primary wheels, reset it. I might have made a mistake and had it on log before. Okay, so final little step here is just make this a little bit tighter because we're going to use this over and over again in the future. It's nice to get it pretty lined up and as intuitive as possible. Now, since you made it, of course, you are going to very much, own it. But we can do a few things so you can keep yourself less confused in the future. All right, kind of make sure. Sometimes you have this. Sometimes I might put it something like this, so it's kind of clear. It comes here, and this is very clear. Like, okay, I'm sending this signal to the skin, to the sky, to the nose skin, as well as to the mixer itself. All right, these guys can be kind of sucked up here high and tight. So we can key and we can mask. We can mix it together. We can pass it forward. All right. Something like this, I don't know, it gets a little bit busy and it can kind of be confusing, so it makes sense to use the engineering diagram principles and have things cut 90 degrees. Kind of work your LUT stuff. Make sure that guy's connected proper. Do your final little row down here. Okay, there we go. It looks nice and high and tight. Now, if you go through here and you hit Option D to turn everything on and off, do a little bypass, nothing should look different in your viewer because all of these should be set to 0, and the ones that are not set to 0 have a few masks and things like that. Their key, their output key down here should be, the gain should be set to 0, so they're basically not in effect. Now, what do you do with this? Go to Gallery, go to your power grades, okay? And pick, I don't know, pick like whatever view you want on here. Right click and grab the still. Boom. Okay, there it is. Now I would make sure this is clearly labeled something which is meaningful to you, like your base grade. So if I come down here, I could change label. I'll say main grade. I'll say 04. So it's my, do it again. So it's my 4th version of this main grade. Okay, so there's some previous versions I can actually play with, but this is the main thing. So then, now that if I go to a new clip, all right, that just starts out like this, I can go to my grades, my power grades, which should, you know, go beyond all your projects and apply the grade. Now the grade isn't doing anything at this point, but let's say it's the first cut in a new deal. But I got this structure here to all of a sudden go through and just start working, as you all know, do the base and kind of do something like we did before. Now you may wonder and ask, why do I have all that work? Well, first off, you know, all the work is done for you now that you have this guy to load up. One benefit I see in having this structure and this layout is it's a reminder. Because honestly, sometimes I'll forget some stupid stuff because I don't color grade that much. It's just kind of an aggressive hobby. I might forget sharpness, for example. All right, it's like, oh, I forgot sharp. I might forget doing a vignette. Okay, you know, or sometimes like it's a stimulus. Maybe a little bit of a key or put a light somewhere or something like that. So it's nice to have that ability. One thing I would also recommend on this final note is if you want to turn off a node, like let's say you're going to change the temperature here, all right, and you're going to turn it off. Instead of turning it off, I would actually just go in and set the gain to 0. That way, when you go back and you turn all the nodes on and off to do some comparisons or something like that, you're not going to inadvertently turn on a node and leave it on, if that makes sense. All right? Okay, super. Sorry for being so long in describing all this, but I think you have a really good idea now of how you can just have a base node structure that you can really take ownership on and, you know, split off all the little steps and elements to kind of see their effects in isolation, and really kick tail with your grading. All right, that's it.